Hi, everybody. Pastor Tim here from Calvary Church in Pueblo, Colorado, and this is Recap, Rewind, and bonus features from the message we had on March 28th, 2021. And of course, it's Palm Sunday, and so we looked at the prophecy in Zechariah chapter 9, as well as its fulfillment in the New Testament. In particular, we looked at Luke chapter 19, where Christ gave his disciples instructions to get this donkey, this infant colt, and bring it to him. They did, and he then rode triumphantly into Jerusalem, not as a warrior king on a war horse, but as a peaceful king on a donkey. And people laid down their cloaks and palm branches, and there was a group of people towards the end of that chapter 19 that we saw, the Pharisees, that were very upset that all this was happening. They did not recognize the work of God. They saw this as a tragedy. And Jesus responds by saying, even if they were silent, the masses of the people, his disciples, even if they were silent, the rocks would cry out with triumphant joy that the King of David is here, that the great prophecy of the King of David is being fulfilled in their midst. And we looked at how to recognize God's work. And we saw that God works in us for good, and sometimes that's hard to see in the small little things of life, but even the smallest things in our lives accomplish great things for God's glory and majesty. One of the things that we did not have a chance to look at, we find in Luke chapter 24. Now, this is taking place after all of the events of the last Holy Week. This is taking place after the crucifixion and resurrection. Jesus, at this point in the Gospels, is meeting up with his disciples to give them encouragement and basically marching orders that you need to go evangelize the world, the Great Commission. And in the process, he has this one unbelievably cool story as he is traveling on the road to Emmaus. And he meets up with a couple disciples as he's on the road in Luke chapter 24. And these disciples are talking about the events of what happened during Passover in Jerusalem. And you get from the story that they're pretty much bummed out because they were followers of Christ and things didn't happen according to plan. In their mind, in their eyes, as well as much of Jerusalem, Israel, they were looking for a warrior king to give them victory over Rome and to bring peace to their land, and that didn't happen. See, the disciples, even those that walked with Christ for 3 years, couldn't recognize God's overall plan. God's overall plan was victory from sin, death, and the devil. Immediately, they wanted victory from Rome and the oppressive political and religious powers, and they didn't get that. And so as these disciples were walking back to their hometown, Jesus comes alongside, and they start a conversation. And in that conversation, Luke tells us that Jesus went through the entire Old Testament and revealed to them why the Christ, the Messiah, the appointed one, had to suffer. And that had to be an incredible conversation. I have no idea how long it took. It could have taken a half an hour. It could have taken a couple hours journey. I have no idea how long they were with him on the road to Emmaus. And there's a point there where they didn't recognize who Jesus was. And so this conversation continues until they get to Emmaus and Jesus breaks bread. Jesus has that moment where he reveals to them who he is, and their eyes were opened. And the commentary of these individuals who were his disciples on the road said, "Weren't our hearts burning inside of us? There was something about this man that uniquely drew us to him, but we couldn't put our finger on it until we saw him breaking bread, and then we know, oh, that's Jesus." And I think the lesson in that for us today, through all of the events of Palm Sunday, and through that story in Luke chapter 24, which go ahead and read it, it's a great story, is one of being willing to recognize the handiwork of God, even if it isn't super clear to us. You know, we saw passages in Romans 8:28. We know all things work together of good for those who love God and those who are called according to his purpose. We saw in Ephesians chapter 2, for we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. There are times where we feel our lives are insignificant in the greater plan of God, and we just need to realize that those moments are indeed God-inspired moments. Even a walking from Jerusalem to Emmaus is a God moment. Even the smallest moment in your life is a God moment because He is working in you to perfect His glory and His majesty and His work of redemption. And I think that is the great story of Palm Sunday, is that a small event of a guy taking a donkey from Bethesda all the way in Bethany and all the way into Jerusalem, that journey has eternal significance for our well-being. Your journey has eternal significance for your well-being. It is up to us to recognize it, to have our eyes opened. And so that is a beautiful prayer that we can ascend to every single day. Lord, open my eyes that I might see and recognize your handiwork in my life and in the lives of others, that I might recognize it and praise it and encourage it. What a great thing to do. So I think that's a great recap, rewind, and bonus features from Sunday's message. If you haven't listened to the entire message and worship service, please do so. You can find that on our YouTube page and our website at calvarypueblo.com. And I'd encourage you to take in that whole service and message. It will be uplifting to you. So until next week, God bless.